A good marriage is about compromise, but not every compromise is easy. I Gave Him the Best Year of My Life by Irma Bombeck. Read by Karl. People are always asking couples whose marriages have endured this quarter of a century for their secret for success. Actually, there's no secret at all. I am a forgiving woman. Long ago, I forgave my husband for not being Paul Newman. Those are the breaks. I realized, being mortal, I couldn't possibly understand my dry skin, boot puddles on my waxed floor, hips that hang like saddlebags, and a house that holds for me all the excitement of a disposal plant. How can I appreciate that my life is like a treadmill, with stops at tedium, boredom, monotony, and the laundry room? That is why it comes bounding in each evening with a smile and a report of its day. Last night, for example, he munched on a stalk of celery and said, "I've had quite a day. Worked like a son of a gun this morning with Fred." Then we got in the car and toured an installation north of town. Suddenly I remembered it was Sandy's birthday. Remember Sandy, don't you? I remember Sandy. She was the one who burnt her bra and 5 engine companies showed up. So we treated Sandy to lunch. By the time I got back to office, it was time to wrap up. I'm late because I stopped off at John to see his new boat. What did you do today? I fired my deodorant, I said. When he left the room, I mumbled, Paul wouldn't have been so unfeeling. Who's Paul? Asked my 11-year-old. Now, trying to explain Paul Newman's mystique to an 11-year-old is as futile as explaining Dr. Werner von Braun to Goldie Hawn. Paul Newman, I said patiently. The guy in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid? He rode a neat horse in that picture. What horse? How come you're smiling and looking funny? He asked. Like what? Like when you find a quarter in Daddy's chair. It's Paul Newman, I shrugged. Would you like to be married to him? Nothing to do with marriage, I said. You mean you'd like him to be your friend? I wouldn't have phrased it quite that way. He's about as tall as Daddy, isn't he? Daddy who? Boy, lady sure acts silly over movie stars. I don't know if I can explain it or not, I said slowly, but Paul Newman to a tired housewife is like finding a plate of bourbon cookies at a PTA open house. It's putting on a girdle and having it hang loose. It's having a car you don't have to park on a hill for it to start. It's matched luggage, dishes that aren't plastic, and even when something's better to do than pick off your old nail polish. Paul Newman is not a mere mortal. He never carries out garbage, has a fever blister, yawns, blows his nose, has dirty laundry, wears pajama tops, carries a thermos, dozes in his chair, or listens to the ball game. He's your first pair of heels, your sophomore year, your engagement party, your first baby. Good grief, boy, he's the eagle on his way to the moon. Don't you understand that? I don't think so, he said. Anyway, his horse was pretty neat. As I passed the window, I saw my reflection. Flats, headscarf, daughter's windbreaker with 71 and 2 stripes on the sleeve, mixie skirt, long and short. Who was I kidding? With the kind of day I had, I'd settle for the horse. Naturally, I don't want any recognition or rewards, but I forgive my husband for a lot of things during our 23-year marriage. I forgive him for not tanning. Actually, I've dedicated my entire life to getting my husband tanned. I basted him with oil, marinated him with lotions, tossed him all sides, and broiled him to perfection. Frankly, if I'd spent as much time in the kitchen as I spent on him, I'd outdistance the galloping gourmet. It has all gone in vain. The other day I watched him inch his way out into the sunlight. He was swathed in 6 beach towels, a pair of dark glasses, and a pair of sandals that buckled to his knees. Did you lose your umbrella? I asked dryly. I don't know why it bothers you. I'm not tanned, he said, moving his chair to a shady spot. It bothers me because you don't look healthy. You look like a 96-pound weakling with kick sand in your face and beach and yell, "Yeah, sickie." When will you get into your head that some people do not tan, he said. Everybody tans, I said. It's just a matter of conditioning. It's not a matter of conditioning. Does it make you feel awful to go in a crowded room and have people ask, what happened? Well, just because I do not want to look like an escapee from an elephant's burial ground. Steve McQueen tans, I said, and so does Paul Newman. Ever seen John Wayne sitting in the center with towels covering his arms? What's that got to do with me? They all look healthy. That's what it has to do. Wouldn't you like to walk down the street looking bronzed and mysterious? Women would turn and say, "Boy, does he look healthy." No. Just for an hour or so, let the sun do its thing. You stretch out, and I'll pour 3 cups of oil over you and let you simmer. From time to time, I checked to make sure he was tanning evenly. Later, he came into the house and eased into his clothes. "What did I tell you?" I laughed. "Already your clothes look better. You should see the contrast between the white shirt and your skin. And your eyes. Never knew they had color before." Later, as they sat side by side, leafing through a magazine, I tried again. "I know you don't agree with me now, but believe me when I tell you you're the healthiest looking man in this doctor's office." I forgive him for flunking campfire in the Boy Scouts. It's amazing how a careless camper will flip a match during a rainstorm, and seconds later the entire forest will be in flames. If I go to a party, my husband will lay a fire using 30 pounds of paper, a mound of brittle kindling, and a seasoned log with a guarantee stapled on the side. Within minutes, an entire party would join to the streets by smoke. He's the only man I know who had a fireplace with a gas lighter go out on him. "Why don't you forget the fire tonight?" I said, collaring him before a party. "Nonsense," he said. "I've got the secret. I just have to use more paper and get it started early. That's just started early and get a bed of hot coals. Then just feed it logs all night." At 6:30 p.m., he burned the evening paper, which I had not read. At 6:40, he emptied 3 trash cans into the fireplace and created another small flame. At 7:05, he emerged from the garage with a wagon full of papers I had been saving for the last 3 months for the Boy Scout paper drive. The guests began to arrive. At 7:45, he burned all the calendars in the house, plus 5 napkins which he snatched from the guests. At 7:50, he frantically tore the plastic bags off the dry cleaning in the hall closet and burned a drawer full of brown paper grocery bags I saved for garbage. At 8:05, with the living room snowy with flying fragments of soot, he began emptying shoeboxes and wedging them under the log. At 9 o'clock, he was reduced to lighting unpaid bills with a match and throwing them on the smoldering log. I called him. "Look, Smokey the Bear, will you forget about the lousy fire and pay some attention to your guests?" "I almost got it," he said feverishly. "Just a few more pieces of paper." He ran to the cedar chest and emerged with the baby books, our wedding pictures, and our marriage license. At 1 a.m., he grabbed me by the shoulder. "It's going," he said. "It's really blazing. Remember those cereal boxes with only a little cereal left? I threw it away and the boxes did it." "Wonderful," I said, pulling the cover around my neck. "Now will you put it out and come to bed? We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow. I'm going to have you committed." I even forgive him for being tall. I'm 5'2", and he's just under 6 feet. According to him, I get my kicks out of life by moving the car seat up to within 3 inches of the steering column and leaving it there. "Okay, you win," he said, staggering into the kitchen and slipping into a chair. "What are you talking about?" "I'm too weak to fight you anymore. My kidneys have been destroyed by a door handle. I have burns on my neck from being flogged with a shoulder belt. My head is bleeding from a clip by the mirror, and I tore my pants on the left turn signal." "Is that what you were blowing the horn about?" "I was blowing the horn because every time I exhaled, my belt buckle pressed against the horn." "You are upset." "Aren't you quick? Next year you may even get tie shoes." "There was no need for you to be sarcastic." "That's easy for you to say. You never tried to fold a pair of legs into a parachute and drop into your own car before." "Look at these," he shouted, putting his feet on the table under my nose. "Do you know what those are?" "They are feet," I said softly. "That's right. They were never meant to be folded, spindled, or mutilated." "Then why are they forked?" "Because I just rescued them from the jaws of the glove compartment. Then perhaps if I crawled in from the passenger side, I can wind my legs around the neck and then unwind them under the steering wheel." "What happened?" "I was attacked by a sun visor, and in skirmish my foot was half eaten by the glove compartment." "I don't leave a seat up on purpose," I began. He jumped from his chair. "Oh, but you do. You've really gotten over not marrying the hunchback of Notre Dame, have you? Now, he could have finished your mini car, couldn't he? You like one of those cardboard cars whipping out with Barbie and Ken and Midge. You should have married a jockey. Or Mickey Rooney. What a twosome you would have made sitting on your pillows. Or Dick Cavett, stirring a picnic basket on your feet. What about that guy on top of the wedding cake? I think one of the real tests of a stable marriage is being married to a man who worships the shrine of burnt food, the backyard chef. Last spring, we decided to remodel our kitchen. We installed a stove that does everything but purpose, a fridge freezer that coughs ice and defrosts itself, a line of counter appliances that make humor obsolete, a dishwasher disposer that eliminates leftovers, and shelves in storage to stagger the imagination. On the day it was completed, my husband stood in the middle of his culinary carpet land, nozzle approval, then headed for the backyard, where he proceeded to cook our meal in a fetal position over a hibachi, using a bent coat hanger for a fork and a garbage can lid to hold the salt and pepper. Most men go through it. It's called the backyard bicarbonate syndrome, but known to most Americans as the cookout. The condition is usually brought about by the acquisition of a new grill, a fun apron that reads, "Burned is beautiful," or a neighbor who delights and amazes his guests every weekend with dishes from his new Neanderthal cookbook. Somehow you cannot help but admire the courage of these virgin cooks who heretofore thought a pinch of rosemary was something you did when your wife wasn't looking, and who considered Aspic a ski resort in Colorado. The big question is how to survive it. When you're invited to a cookout, be sure to check the invitation. If it reads 7 p.m., assume that it is a time of arrival. The time you are served may vary as much as 48 to 72 hours from then, depending on A, a confused host who puts the potatoes in the oven and turns on the clothes dryer for 60 minutes, B, an emergency visit from the local fire department that got a call that a tire factory is burning, C, a group of guests who are all members of the U.S. Olympic drinking team and are celebrating their victory over the Russians. In order to survive a cookout, you must also be aware of some of the old myths and cliches. There's a perennial, "After all, what can you do to a good steak?" This line is often accompanied by a high, shrill laugh and a nudge. The implication is it takes very little skill to throw a good chunk of beef on the grill and get it off while still edible. The answer to the question is obviously, you can burn it. Secondly, no cookout is complete without a large furry dog that hangs around the grill all night. There is a myth that large furry dogs never take the meat off the grill and run. Once you have chased a dog through 3 backyards, a shopping center, and a sprinkler, you might be lulled into believing this. Next there's a myth about the couple that cooks together stays married together. The other night I tripped over my husband, who was hunched over his hibachi. "Is that you?" I whispered in darkness. "Who do you think it was?" he asked. I didn't care. If you hadn't moved, I was going to eat you. "Just a little longer," he said. "Are the guests getting hungry?" "I think so. They're sitting around watching their stomachs bloat." "Hasn't been that long." "You kidding? It's the first time I've ever seen my fingernails grow." "Just a few minutes and the coals were ready." "You mean to say you haven't even put the meat on yet?" "Give them some more hors d'oeuvres." "It's no use. They're beginning to get ugly." "Then go check everyone and find out how many want their steaks. Rare, medium, well, and well done." I left and returned in a few minutes. "Well," he asked. 13 raws. Told the horns. "Very funny," he said. "How about the 14th guest?" He ate his coaster and said that would hold him. "That tears it," he said. "That's the last time I waste my special barbecue sauce on this group of ingrates." The survival of the cookout hangs solely, however, on how well he is prepared for the outing. Guests should never be without a survival kit, which should be stocked with a flashlight to see what you are not eating, bright trinkets and beads to barter with the natives for bits of food before dinner is served, a calendar to keep track of time, a sterile face mask to keep from getting high on bug spray, and dry matches for the host when he admits he was never a Boy Scout. The other night, after the guests had gone, I was crawling through the grass, retrieving my silverware. My husband said proudly, "Evelyn Weir just asked for my recipe for barbecue sauce." I could hardly wait until morning to call Evelyn. "Is it true?" I asked. "Did you really ask for his barbecue sauce?" "Certainly did," she said excitedly. "See, the other night when I dropped a bit of the sauce on my skirt, it didn't spot. In fact, it took a spot out. I made a batch of it. This morning, would you believe it? Your husband is a genius. His barbecue sauce kills crabgrass, took a wad of chewing gum off the dog, the oil stains off the garage floor, and cleans chrome. Wonderful, I said. Just keep out of the reach of children. My husband and I have produced 3 children, survived 3 wars, comforted one another at funerals, dedicated ourselves to one another through sickness and in health. The other day I backed out of the driveway, tuned too sharply, and hit the side of his car. He was a perfect stranger. Where are you going? I asked as he left his dented fender and bolted towards the house. Don't move your car, he said. I'm going to call the police. The police? I shouted. For crying out loud, I'm your wife. This is no time for nepotism, he said stiffly. I should have known better than to compete with the man in his car. For years, psychologists have been telling us that a man's relationships with his automobile supersedes even sex. For you women who are skeptics, let me ask you a few questions. Does your husband have an insurance policy that includes no fault comprehensive and is $50 deductible? Or do you have the basic $96 burial policy that puts you on a public bus and takes you to the edge of town? Do you have a guarantee for a complete oil change every 6 months and or 1,000 miles, whichever comes first? Or do you only visit a doctor's office for major surgery? Does your husband find to a rage if you find someone stuck a candy wrapper in their pocket or a piece of bubble gum on your instrument panel? Has your husband ever patted you on the trunk or remarked what a beautiful trade-in you make? Does he go to the restaurant 3 times a week and instruct the waitress to fill her up? Does he care if the kids put their feet on your upholstery? Does he object if your teenagers drive you all over town? Would he pay $8 to have you towed anywhere? If you didn't start in the morning, would he stay home from work? If you answered no to any or all of these questions, then you have a four-wheel correspondent in your divorce suit. As the policeman surveyed our situation, he turned to my husband and said, Sir, you are illegally parked. Your car should be at least 15 feet from the edge of the driveway. Are there any witnesses to this accident? Just my wife, said my husband, smiling at me. I never saw this bum before in my life, I said. As the policeman had gone, my husband mumbled. Joan would have been so unfeeling. Who's Joan? Asked her 11-year-old. John Woodward, said my husband. Don't know if you'll understand us or not, son, but Joan Woodward's like shaving at 12. Like going to buy a car and have the salesman take you directly to something convertibles. Just like having your mother-in-law allergic to you, not having to have a belt to hold your suitcase closed. Joan isn't mortal. She never wears hair rollers, never has chenille marks on her face, and never cleans a fireplace without gloves. Doesn't have to stand up to lose her stomach or talk about worming the dog during dinner. Joan is. Does she ride a horse good? Asked the son. I knew you were too young to understand, he said sadly. But I forgive you, when I forgive your mother. The end.